In part 1, we unboxed, inspected and set up the stunning HolyBro Kopis 1 from GearBest. Now it's time for the flight test. Links to the Kopis 1 are in the video description, where you'll find it currently cheapest online with GearBest, so click now and take a look. But please help us to grow and click subscribe now. The more subscribers that we have, the more reviews and giveaways that we can do. So do us just that one favour and drop us a comment as well. It really is a brilliant day to test the Kopis 1 today. The sun is out and it's quite nice, although there is a bit of a breeze. Now, I'd normally talk over my flight test during the actual flight test itself, but unfortunately I forgot to bring the microphone with me, so I'm narrating post-event. So getting the battery all connected now, and then of course the issue with the antennas just comes up again. These originally in the unboxing, you'll notice, were routed above the frame. Now I've rerouted them below the frame. It's still not perfect, but at least it protects those sensitive little antennas and keeps them away from the props. So initially we're in stabilized mode here just for the initial takeoff, and wow, this quadcopter is balanced and stable. You can see my friend Harry in the background flying his custom-built quad in the background whilst I'm testing the Kopis 1, and I'm just really impressed by how stable this quad is. It really doesn't feel that breeze that's coming in. Then of course it's time for the bit that we love, the punch, and it just disappears. The power of this quad really is impressive, and it's also worth pointing out that these are cheap batteries. They're graphenes, they're 45C, so they're not really fully capable for a quad like this. They're just about adequate, but they're not really giving it the power that it deserves. However, it still doesn't struggle in the slightest to punch straight into the air and out of sight.
Love that.
Now remember that this is the line of sight test, and one key element that I noticed immediately is it's so much easier to keep track of the direction of this quad because of the shape of the frame. The stretched shape makes the quad much easier to identify front from back, and of course from the sides as well, which you don't get when you're flying a symmetrically square quad. And this thing really does hurtle through the sky. I haven't actually enjoyed flying a quadcopter line of sight like this for so long, and I'm really loving this right now. You know, this is a very stable quad. I think the tune has some potential for improvement. However, certainly from a line of sight perspective, it flies really well. In terms of acro, it also flips nicely as well. I tried initially a few slow flips and then really pushed it by giving it full roll, and wow, it flips very quickly. So if you're not quite used to flying quadcopters LOS at this point, be careful with this one because it will bite you.
That is quick.
I think it's time for the FPV flight test, so let's get the goggles on and give it a go. So first look at the FPV picture that we're getting via the Swift Mini camera, and the picture's not too bad at all. What I really do love, however, is the on-screen display, which of course is a Betaflight feature, and this lets me change absolutely every aspect. However, because of the combination of the FC and the VTX that this quadcopter has, I'm even able to change the VTX channel and band, which is brilliant. There are lots of other features in this on-screen display, and it also makes tuning the quad a real breeze because you don't have to plug it into your computer. You can change your PIDs straight from the on-screen display, which I love. As for the quality of the camera, it's very nice. It does, however, I believe need some tuning, and so I'll be connecting the camera up to the programming cable to get it looking a little bit better. But one thing for sure is that the camera focus was definitely off on our unit when it arrived, and so we had to spend a little bit of time getting that tuned up. But onwards with the FPV flight, and up we go for the first takeoff, and the immediate feeling is one of control. Now, I'm used to flying micro brushless quadcopters in most of our reviews, and those little things of course are quite lightweight and are easily carried with the wind. Now, despite this being a windy day, this quadcopter just does not feel it, and it's very smooth in the air. Now this is my first flight with the Kopis 1, and so I don't want to get too adventurous yet, so following a few circles of ourselves, it's time to see what this quad can do with the first little flip. Now the roll rates from the factory are very quick on this, so if you do give it full roll, it will roll very, very quickly. But despite that, you've still got loads of control, and as soon as you release out of that roll, the quadcopter recovers very nicely. One thing I noticed as well is that altitude control is far better with this quad than when I'm flying most other quads, and I think that probably comes down to the factory tune as well, just being pretty good on this. Getting a little bit more adventurous now. Now I don't have a lap or trees to fly around here, so this is kind of freestyle for me. I'm not the best FPV pilot, unfortunately, but I'm finding this a real breeze and I'm really, really enjoying it. The other great thing about this quad, of course, is the power. Now when you do dip that nose down and give it full throttle, it is very, very rapid and it really screams. Also, of course, because of the air mode, when you are up there in the air in flight, it's very stable when you dump the throttle, and at no point does this quadcopter seem to lose its balance or stability up there. Now one issue we did notice with the factory tune actually is that when you are descending into your own prop wash, there is a little bit of turbulent behaviour there, and it's as if the PIDs aren't quite right. The more that we flew this quad, the more that we actually determined that the factory tune actually isn't perfect, and there is some definite improvement to be made there, as well as some improvements to the rates, although of course rates are very subjective and personal, so everybody flies their quad with the rates that they feel most comfortable with, and so therefore there isn't really a right or wrong answer to what they should be set to. Now towards the end of the flight, I'm flying quite a bit behind myself and there's a lot of breakup on the VTX. That's not the fault of the quadcopter, it's my fault. I stupidly had forgotten to set my fat sharks back onto diversity. Therefore, this entire flight was actually via a patch antenna, which is actually quite impressive considering it's only a 5 dBi directional patch antenna. So in theory, we shouldn't really get any signal at all when flying behind us. So at the end of that flight you get the nice statistics summary screen, and you can see that that was a full battery there. We only hit a minimum battery voltage of 11.7, which isn't so bad. Maximum current of only 59 amps. Now we didn't really go overboard on the punching there, so that is quite low. But 818 milliamps used, so we still potentially had a little bit left in that battery, although that reading may not be entirely accurate. The VTX incidentally was set to 200 milliwatts for that test, and I did a bit of a range test as well in a separate flight, and it's pretty impressive. The overall flight time on that single fully charged battery was 3 minutes 15, which considering the power that this quadcopter has, really isn't too bad. The Kopis 1 genuinely represents truly great value. Its top quality components and build quality mean that it's almost not worth building your own quad if you're just starting out in FPV. The 5mm carbon frame is almost unbreakable and yet still fairly lightweight. The stretched form of the frame makes LOS flights much easier, and trust me, if you don't normally fly LOS, you will want to with this quad. Unlike many other RTF quads like the Walkera range, there are no proprietary parts. All components in the Kopis 1 are off the shelf and therefore they're readily available. And finally, there is a really nice and impressive informative online manual which talks through every aspect, even connecting it to Betaflight and tuning your endpoints. That's a really nice touch. There are just a few negatives, but these are easily corrected. The speed controller wires are a bit too exposed for me and have a really soft rubber sleeving which I think could be toughened up a little bit. Also, the speed controllers would be much better mounted on top of the arms, not underneath, to avoid damaging them. During testing, we found some odd reactions to high C rating batteries. We're investigating that now and we'll report back in our editorial, and the link to that is in the video description. And lastly, the camera is a bit exposed and not protected on its sides, but realistically you're only going to damage that via a central impact. Besides that, it's no big issue. Overall, the HolyBro Kopis 1 makes other RTF quads like those from Walkera look heavy, ridiculous and a little bit overpriced. Made from quality components, built solidly and flying beautifully, the Kopis 1 is definitely my current favourite. Links to the best deal on the Kopis 1 right now are in the video description, so do take a look.
So what do you think about that, Harry?
Yeah, it's good.
I genuinely thrive on feedback from my viewers, and so please comment below with your thoughts, give the video a thumbs up, and of course click that subscribe button, because the more subscribers we have, the more reviews we can bring to you. Thanks very much for watching.